Momentous day in British politics, or is it? We'll find out now, because Reform UK's membership has now exceeded that of the Conservative Party. The latest toll is 131,861 to the Tories 131,680. That means they have 180 more members than the Tory party. So let's talk to the chairman of Reform UK. Joining us live, it's Zia Yusuf. Hello, Zia.
Good morning.
Many congratulations to you. This must be a huge day of celebration.
Thank you, but the congratulations go to the millions of Reform supporters across the country, obviously the 132,000 members who have joined us. But make no mistake, this is a historic moment. As Nigel has just tweeted out, the youngest political party in British politics has just overtaken the oldest political party in the world in terms of members. And we're just getting started. The general election was just 7 months ago, and the party has been professionalising rapidly. To give you an idea of the pace of growth here, a year ago, the party was at 8% in the polls and had 15,000 members. Today, we're polling at an average of 23%, and we have almost 132,000 members. And we've done that in a year. So imagine where we're going to be in another year and a year after that. This is a historic time in Britain. The two-party stranglehold that has existed, this duopoly of the two old parties that has had British people within its grip for the last century, is finally being broken. And I think that's an extraordinary thing.
Now, one of the reasons, perhaps, that Reform are escalating at this time is not just the professionalisation, which we'll talk about in just a moment, but it's also the fact that perhaps people were critical of Nigel Farage at the last election when Boris Johnson was elected over Jeremy Corbyn, is that he blinked and he kind of refused to put Reform or Brexit Party candidates in constituencies which Boris Johnson could win and create the parliamentary majority he needed to win. But this time, you've not blinked. You've got 5 MPs, but it would still take an enormous wave for you to convert 5 seats into 350 seats, when actually you're only second in 89 seats around the country.
Well, all of that data you've just given me is around 7 months old. And
right.
The party only had around 40,000 members, for example, at that time. And look, nobody is more aware than Nigel and the rest of the MPs and every Reform supporter listening to this. And frankly, even people who don't yet support us, who feel incredibly betrayed by Boris Johnson, what he did with that 80-seat majority, as Kemi Badenoch admits. They talked right and governed left. They unleashed one of the most catastrophic immigration and border policies this country has ever seen. Many of the problems we see in this country, frankly, are down to the betrayal of the Tory party. So that is one key driver of our growth. But I'll tell you what I believe is the primary driver of Reform's growth. Talking to our supporters across the country, it is one of optimism. The primary driver is that people finally, amidst this dystopian Keir Starmer government and all the awful things and the hardship that is being inflicted on the British people, they actually see that there is hope. And yes, going from 5 MPs to 326 in one fell swoop would be an extraordinary thing. But don't underestimate where we are now in the polls. This is where the first past the post system stops being a headwind and becomes a tailwind. If once we get to 32%, we have a majority. And we're not far off now from getting there, around 8 percentage points. We've gone from 15% to 23% in 6.5 months. So make no mistake, history is being made. We have an incredible team. We have all of the momentum in British politics and all of the factors and drivers that have gotten the country to where it is today, this awful state, and all of those factors simultaneously that have driven Reform's rise. Not only are those not going to get better, they're going to get worse at an alarming rate. Whether it's energy bills continuing to rocket through the roof because of Mad Ed's insane obsession with net zero, whether it's the immigration policy, which remains totally, essentially still open borders. The boats are coming at a faster rate on a daily basis under this Keir Starmer government than even the catastrophic Tory government. Or law and order. We still obviously have nowhere near enough prison space. The two-tier policing problem has continued to get worse. And of course, anyone who has tried to get a GP or dentist appointment, or indeed gone to accident and emergency, will know the disastrous state that our NHS is in. So people see in reform an opportunity here. They see rays of sunshine, essentially, and a silver lining to this, which is that just as has happened in the United States, where people really feel like there is a new dawn brewing, that's what we're going to be able to deliver for people in Britain. And it will only be a party from without the system that can deliver that.
Right.
The people who came from within the system and owe their existence to the system will never be able to bring the change this country needs.
I mentioned professionalisation, and you talk about the first past the post system, which was no doubt an impediment to your electoral chances this year, and you're saying that it'll be a tailwind, and yet it's more than just that. That is the bricks and mortar membership around the country. There are conservative clubs around the country, and in order to professionalise, you need a Reform membership club in Derby or in, Ipswich, in Edinburgh, in Cornwall. You need a local office, just like they have, for example, in Eastbourne, where there's a Liberal Democrat office, there's a Conservative office, because they flip between each other so much. There's almost a case of two MPs there at all times, the way it's swung either way. You need that, and you haven't got that yet. That is a monumental building facility that's required, isn't it, Zia? That literally can't be done overnight.
Well, that's where I've spent the majority of my time as chairman, actually, since the general election, is building that infrastructure. We now have over 400 branches across the country. You can go to our website, look up, find your branch, enter your post, go to your address, and it'll show you where your nearest one is and how to get in touch to go to your local meeting. Absolutely. We are building a ground campaign infrastructure. By the time we get to the Scottish and Wales elections in 2026, we will have a pretty formidable ground campaign machine. And by the general election, we will have the most sophisticated and impactful and effective ground campaigning infrastructure in the country. So, yes, it's a tall order. We're clear-eyed about that. But to give you a sense of the momentum behind this and how people seem to have no idea the speed at which things can be built in the modern era. It was only on Christmas Eve, that the Telegraph, when we pushed our tracker live with 118,000 members, said that they expected us to surpass the Tory membership at some point in the next month. Now, technically, that's correct. We've done it inside 2.5 days, obviously. We've added over 13,000 members inside 3.5 days. Now, that, again, is unprecedented. So, look, we've got no shortage of willing volunteers across the country. They're incredible, patriotic people who love their country and want to help. We're building the infrastructure as we speak. You're right. It is going to be a huge challenge, but generally saving a country is such a challenging thing, and we're all up for that.
Zia Yusuf, congratulations. Many thanks indeed for joining us. That is the chairman of Reform UK, Zia Yusuf, who came on the show just now with the breaking news that Reform UK have now exceeded membership of the Tory party. They're approaching 132,000 members. The Conservatives, 131,680. Are you tempted, as a former Tory voter, to vote Reform, given that he says this is a revolution in thinking to save the country? Are these big words that can be translated into real action? Are you still cynical? Are you still worried about elements of the Reform UK manifesto and party that make you think, well, I am a traditional Tory or indeed Labour voter that might stick to my guns with the main party? Or is it time that the two-party system was thrown on its head?